Good morning, Rabbi Isai. We're holding on the bottom of Daf Kuv Daled Amud Beis. Boy, Rabbi Lazar, 4 lines from the bottom. Param Anisrafim, Usirim Anisrafim. So you have these bulls that you have to burn completely. You have the goats you have to burn. They have to do usually with Yom Kippur or the Parhelim Davar. Sometimes you have to burn Karbanis. Shiyotza Ruboy B'miyot Aver. Ooh, I really wanted to get. Do you have like some sort of doll here? Roiv Aver came out of the Beis Hamikdash. Now we know that whoever deals with these bulls that have to be burned, they themselves become tamei. Similar to like the paraduma, the one who deals with it becomes tamei. The purple part of this animal is 50%. The gray part of this animal is 50%. So now, here's the line. I moved this out of the Beis Hamikdash. It's on the line. This half is in the Beis Hamikdash. This half is outside the Beis Hamikdash. And now I take a little bit of the foot, and it's above the line. So now I have 55% that's outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Do the people become tamei or not? Here's the question. Because if you look closely, this foot, these toes belong to this long foot. And this long foot is inside the Beis Hamikdash. The toes are outside of the Beis Hamikdash. So do I look at the toes and say, well, they belong to something that's much larger, the entire animal? The way you got to arrive was with a little bit of the toes. Do I say that at the end of the day, the toes belong to the leg, the foot, and the foot is inside the Beis Hamikdash, it's not as if it's outside of the Beis Hamikdash? So therefore, this animal did not go out of the Beis Hamikdash. Or perhaps I go with the majority, and the majority is outside of the Beis Hamikdash because I'm going to include the toes, and with the toes you have 51%. Says the Gemara, of course, you have the Roiv. The Roiv went out of the Beis Hamikdash. That's not a shayla. Elo. What's the question? So what happened over here is that it's really 50-50. Only 50% went out of the Beis Hamikdash, and 50% remained inside. It's not that you have 55 like we were talking about before. It's 50-50. But the way you got to 50% is because you used a majority of one of his Eivarim. And at the end of the day, perhaps Haimiyuta de Eiver, Basa Roiv Eiver Shadinalei, Vaha Nafaklei, or Dilma Basa Behema Shadinalei. Do we go by the animal or do we go by the Eiver? And the Aver is the Roiv, and will decide that you don't have that you have a majority. So really it's 50-50. It's not 55 and 45, it's 50-50. Do we use the Roiv to create a majority? Do we say the Aver is the Roiv, and therefore you have a majority? Teiku. Rabbi Ravuna Masilo Begavri. Rabbi Ravuna said we're talking about human beings. What happened was that the animal is outside of the Beis Hamikdash, but we're talking about the people that are dealing with this animal. And you have 5 people that carry the animal out of the Beis Hamikdash. And 3 out of the 5 went out. And 2 remained inside. Mai. Basa Roiv, misaskin azlina, do we go by the Roiv of the people that are dealing with this animal? Most went out, so you have 3 against, so it's really Roiv, and therefore they're all Tamei. Basa Behema azlinon, or not? Do we go by the Behema? Now the animal happens to be, is outside. So we don't look at the people, we look at the animal. So the animal is outside, but the people that are inside are Tar, and those who are outside are Tamei. So I showed you, and I'm going to show you later. Yesterday we learned how the people holding this animal, as they leave the Beis Hamikdash, they become tamei one by one. So you could have a certain amount of people that are holding the animal that are tamei because they left the Beis Hamikdash. The people behind that are still carrying the animal, but they're in the Beis Hamikdash, they're still tar. Boy Rebbe Lazar. We said once the par goes outside of the Beis Hamikdash, anybody dealing with it becomes tamei. What happens if they came back inside? So the Gemara's question is very interesting. The Gemara's question is, would it remove the tumah retroactively? That's basically the Gemara's question. Once they went out, so they caused tumah. The harder. Once it comes back in, it is able to remove retroactively the tumah. As they come out of the Beis Hamikdash, they become tamei. This guy becomes tamei red, and then the second guy becomes red. So as the first ones come out of the wall, they become tamei. They become so tamei that their own clothing become tamei. And the back ones, they have to come out in order to become tamei. And if you understand that as soon as they leave, they become tamei. Those who remain inside, litamu, they should become tamei. Why don't they become tamei? It's a raya from the fact that they don't become tamei, that since this animal, if it came back inside, it would remove the tumah. They also, it's kilo that they're back inside. That's why they're not tamei. That's how the Gemara understands. Nachamal, the guys that remain inside should become tamei. The reason they're not tamei because it's as if they came back inside. If the animal had come back inside, it would make them tahar lechatchila. So therefore, they are tahar now. It's interesting svara. Omer Avina v'tizbara. In order for them to become tamei, they have to be able to fulfill the pasuk va'achar yava elamachana. In other words, they have to leave. In order to become tamei, you have to be in a position that you're able to come back. The reason why they're tar is because they never left. What was his question? Keep going. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that Yoshi didn't do a bekulse. Bekulse is basically to have like a fishing rod outside of the Beis Hamikdash and pull the animal out through a fishing rod, some sort of stick. You have these bulls and the Sarah Mishtaleach. The bulls that you burn and the Sarah Mishtaleach is the goat. Here we have a little video from back in the day. It says that in the time of, I forgot which bayis, the bones when they threw it off, this is the Sarah Mishtaleach Azazel, they'll literally throw it off a mountain, and all its limbs, it's a tough one to watch, all its limbs would break. Later generations, they would just let it go, and people would steal it, the shoididim would grab it. Fine. Hamashaleach hasarfon v'amitzion, the one who that throws off this goat from the mountain, and the one burning the parim v'amitzion, and taking it out of the Beis Hamikdash, mitam v'gadim, their clothing becomes tam. V'heinatzmane mitam v'gadim, but the dead animal doesn't have the power to be mitama a beged. It cannot be mitama clothing, but it could be mitama other foods. Yeah, so this animal that you threw off the mountain, it itself it's not mitama clothing, but it's mitama food. They make a distinction. The par, and the ones that are burned, they are mitama food. Sora mishtalech eino mitama. But the goat that fell off the mountain, that not. Shuchai. When it's alive, it's not mitama. V'chai eino mitama ochel mamashkin. Because you never have a situation where a live animal can be mitama food. Says Gemara Bishlam, the Remeir, the Tana, the Rebbe Shmuel. Remeir is going to hold like Rebbe Shmuel. The Tana, Rebbe Shmuel, Akol Zera Zerua. You have like a sheretz that touched this the seeds, from the Tama Tuma Chamura, these seeds that are never going to become Avatuma. So just to remind the Olam, if you're part of MDY, you know this chart Balpeh. Well, it's kedai to see it all the time. Here we go. So it starts with Avi Avois Tuma. The strongest Tuma is a dead person. It's Avi Avois Tuma. And the way Tuma works, it just steps down one level. Every time you touch it, that Tuma, you become one level below that. So if a human being touches Avi Avois Tuma, if a human being touches a dead person, he becomes an Avatuma. An Avatuma could also be like a Sheretz, a Zav. If an Avatuma touches a person, a Kli, that becomes one step less, it becomes a Rishon. If a Rishon touches food, that food becomes one step less, a Sheni. If a Sheni touches, let's say, Kachim, it basically starts stopping at the Sheni level, but it could go to Shlishi, even a Revi, sometimes to Chamishi. Fine. So, these Zroim, they'll never become an Avatuma. They won't become an Avatuma. They'll never become like a Sheretz. In order for usually, most food items, in order for them to become Tameh, they need a Hechsher Tumah. They have to be susceptible to Tumah. How do you make something susceptible to Tumah? With the Shivas HaMash. So, Mazrom Shein Tzavim L'Tameh Tumah Chamuro, Tzrichem Hechsher, Avkol Shein Tzavim L'Tameh Tumah Chamuro, Tzrichem Hechsher. So we learn from that everything else also has to be something that at least could have a Tumah Chamura and a Hechsher Tumah. Yotzas Nivlas Oif Tahar, Shesoif L'Tameh Tumah Chamura, Ve'ein Tzricha Hechsher. This comes to exclude the very interesting halacha when it comes to a kosher bird. A kosher bird, if you touch it, you don't become tameh. But if you swallow it, then you become tameh. El Rabbanon, the Gemara asks, according to Rabbanon, Yislu the Torah de Shmuel, Afilu Sarah Mishtaleach. If Memanav Shach, how do they make a distinction between the Sarah Mishtaleach and the other karbanas? If they hold like Rabbi Shmuel, then even the Sarah Mishtaleach should be Matama. Ilesle Afilu Parim Menolan. So why is that the Parim are Matama and the Sarah Mishtaleach not? Because Rav Dimi Omar Amri b'Merava, they said in Israel, Tzrichim Hechsher Tuma Mimakam Acher. You need another source for the Tumah, and therefore the Azazel, the Sarah Mishtaleach, that's why it can't become Tameh, because it doesn't have another source for Tumah. Boyer Belazar, Parim Usiir Manisraf and Maushi Tamu Ochlim Mashkim Bifnim Kibachutz. So there's another interesting, a bunch of shilas from Belazar, very interesting questions. Another one is this bull that you burn, Yom Kippur bull, let's call it Yom Kippur bull. Can it create Tumah inside the Beis HaMikdash? Just like outside of the Beis HaMikdash, it creates Tumah. Why? We say the fact that, okay, it has to go outside, but now it's almost outside, you almost took it outside, maybe it should be able to create Tumah inside. They said no. No, it's still missing action. You have to take action, take it outside of the Beis HaMikdash. Of course, when it's inside the Beis HaMikdash, it's not metame. Oh, so now that we saw this chicken thing, this kosher bird, how much do you have to swallow in order to become tameh? A kazayis. What? Yeah, in your throat as you swallow it. But you need how much? A kazayis. Typically speaking, the shear to be metama is not a kazayis, it's kibetza. So that's like this. This nevela of a bird, can it be metama other things when it's only kazayis? So what does that mean? Says the Gemara explains. The machtala, if it's, what's the Gemara's question? It says in the Torah that it's metama person when you swallow. So what is he asking now? Can it be metama other things with the kazayis? The Gemara explains. The machtala ara le'tibaylach. If it's on the ground, it's pashut, that it doesn't do anything. The nokat bepumei, why it doesn't do anything? Because it's not metama unless you swallow it. Now, if it's in your mouth, the nokat bepumei le'tibaylach, of course, it's pashut that if you eat a kazayis, you become tameh. So what's the question? You're holding it in your hand, and it's a similar question to what he asked before. You're holding it, you're about to put it in your mouth. Since it's a very small action between what you have, It's 2 inches away from his throat, and in his throat it's metama. So since it's just missing you just got to go like this, maybe it should be metama. Says Gemara, Basa the Baya the Pashto, Daf Kofhem Beis, Mechusar Kriva, Lavke Mechusar Maisadami. It's pella. It's a pella that the Gemara understands. No, it's as if it's in your mouth, and therefore it's metama. Eisvei. The 13 things that occur with this bird that we're talking about. You have to think that you want to eat this bird. So Rashi says a very interesting thing that we're talking about, that it's less than a kazayas. You hear this? Less than a kazayas, in combination with less than an egg worth of some other food. Together, what do we have? A full egg's worth of food. If you thought that you're going to eat this bird, then it's mitzdaref. If you didn't, then it's not mitzdaref. Again, you have less than a kazayas bird. You need, in order to become tummy from a bird, you need a full kazayas. You have less than a kazayas bird, dead kosher bird, with less than a kabetza, some other food, because all other foods you need a kabetza to be metama. You're taking this tiny piece of bird, putting it together in the same whatever, you're holding it together. Does it become a kabetza of tuma? If the answer is, if you thought that you're going to eat it, then yes. If not, not. Tzricha machshava. Ve'ein tzricha hechsher. You don't need to pour water on it or be machshir l'kabel tuma. Umetama tumas oichlin b'kabetza. It says mefurish that you need an egg's worth. My lab, Rav Meiri. Rav Meir himself said that you need kazayas. Over here, all of a sudden, you need a kabetza. Says the Gemara, loy rabbanani. You're right. It's not Rav Meir. It's Rabbana. As the Gemara, but I have a problem. The classic Gemara. Reisha tzricha machshava vein tzricha hechsher. The Reisha says that you need machshava and you don't need hechsher tuma. Uman shamis lei haisvar. Who holds that? Rav Meir. So the Reisha goes according to Rav Meir. With the Reisha Rav Meir, Sefer not Rav Meir. Yeah, doesn't the Reisha and the Sefer have to match? Midir, no, mapitom. Okay, this, okay, this. The Reisha can be Rav Meir, the Sefer can be Rabbana. You take a bird and you shecht it, or you do malika with your finger. The process you do in the Beis Hamikdash, even though you find out it's a treifa, because you did the right thing, you did the shechita, you did the malika, it's not considered an avela. It's metayr from treifa. The tumasa. Man shamas le'haisfar, who holds this? Remeir. So now we have a problem. It's like a sandwich. Reish of a seifa Remeir. The top and the bottom are Remeir. In the middle, Mitziyas Rabbanan. How could that be? In Reish of a seifa Remeir, Mitziyas Rabbanan, not a problem. Okay. Next sugya. Omer Rav Amnun Rav Zera. Lo yiteisev akaroch. Ada amris li hom milsa. I don't want you to sit. Keep standing until you tell me what's pshat. He said, don't sit down until you tell me pshat. Nivlas oif tar l'Rav Meir. Monin l'rishoin v'sheni. This nevela, does it create a rishoin? In other words, if the nevela touches food, does the food become a rishoin? Which in return, that rishoin, which touches another food, it goes down one level, so it become a sheni. Maybe it's a special halacha that only a human being becomes tummy through it, but it doesn't have the power to make other food rishon and sheni. If a human being could touch it and he becomes tamei, then it has the power to make food rishon and sheni. How about this bird? This bird doesn't have the. If you touch a dead bird, a dead kosher bird, you don't become tamei. Therefore, a minim by rishon v'sheni. Therefore, it doesn't have the power to make other food items a rishon or a sheni, or a rishon which afterwards becomes a sheni. I don't know what Yoshi was doing here. You'll have to help me out over here. The picture is great. I wasn't sure. Here you have two half a shiurim of food. Two half a shiurim of food, but they're connected with like electricity through water. Chibur achlam mashkin chibur l'tuma kala, ve'ein chibur l'tuma chamura. Moinen by rishon v'sheni, or a moinen by rishon v'sheni. Can you take one of the pieces of food? In other words, it cannot make a person tamei. That's what he's showing, that the person is tar. Oh, but it'll make food tamei. Very good. You see, chumrah it won't make. Now the question is, could that food, now that's a rishon, could that food make another food a sheni? You hear the shaila? Again, let's go back. Very good. He did nicely. Here's a human being touching a half a kibetza. Yeah? The half a kibetza is connected to the other half a kibetza through water. So the human being remains tahar. Why? Because it's tum chamura. If you do the same thing with food, the food becomes tameh. Why? Because now you have a full shear of tumah. How do you have a full shear of tumah? Because the two pieces are connected through the liquid. So it's metama the apple. The question is, can the apple, now that becomes tameh, the rishon, he's a rishon, could he make something else a sheni? Could he, by touching another food? So here, this is what he did. Let me go to the next slide. This apple that touches a half a shear becomes tameh. Why? Because the shear is connected through the water. So now he's a complete tameh. Now he touches another food. Does the other food become tameh? Question mark. You have this was very good. You have two pieces of food that are connected through liquid. It's a good connection to make a food tameh. However, it doesn't make a human being tameh. Can that food make another food tameh? If it can make another human being tameh, then it has the power to make food tameh. If it cannot make another person tameh, listen to this. It cannot make a rishon, but it could make a sheni. You have to put that in with a pencil. It seems like not. It says a moinen by rishon v'sheni, but it means it cannot make a rishon, but it could make a sheni. Yatsu eilu. Both, everybody holding this par that's going to be burnt in the Beis Hadeshen, as soon as the second group left, they become tamei as well. How do we know? So you have the three machnes. Here we have the three camps. First camp is the machne Shechina, the Beis Hamikdash. Second camp is the machne Levir and the Har Bayis, and the third camp is Yerushalayim. So it says by Par Kohen Gadol that it has to be outside of the three machnes. V'kan l'machne achas. By the Par of Yom Kippur, it says one camp. Lo emer lach. Given sheyatza chutz l'machne, this comes to teach you that as soon as it went out of one machne, chutz l'machne achas mitama b'gadim. It has the power to be mitama the person all the way down to his clothing. V'hi gufa minolan. How do I know that? Who said? The Tanur Rabbanon. So this is very interesting. It says v'hoitzis kol apar el mechutz l'machne chutz l'shalosh machnes. Atoimer chutz l'shalosh machnes oyer el machnas. Maybe it only means v'hoitzis es kol apar el mechutz l'machne. Chutz l'machne means one. Who told you out of three? Out of all three camps? Kishuoimer b'paro eida michutz l'machne shein tzarich loimer. Oh, so the Gemara does the same thing three times. It says by para eida you should take it out of the machne. But why? The Torah says, burn it the same way you burnt the first bull, which is mechutz l'machna. Oh, from the fact that the Torah says mechutz l'machna, it adds one. So now you have to take it out of the second machna. So now we have another pasuk. We do the same thing again. It says that when the kohen removes, there's a lot of coals. So once in a while, you have to do a real removal, and you take it outside of the Beis Hamikdash completely to the deshen. Over there also it says Sharei Karnemar al Shevach Hadeshin Yisarev. So why does it say Mechutz Lamachna? This is to add to the second one that we just said before, to a third one. Reb Shimon, What does Reb Shimon do with us? It has to be to the east by the Paraduma. It has to be outside of the three machnes. Plus, it has to be to the east of Yerushalayim. Afkan lemizracha shel Yerushalayim. Rabboisai, have a wonderful day. Yishkoyach for coming. Akutavach here in America. Thank you so much.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.